Hey everybody, I'm Dorothy Downs. I'm the Executive Director of the Forest City Film Festival, and I want to welcome you here and thank you for joining us, welcome you to our third in our Youth Filmmaker 101 series. So we are here every Wednesday at 3 o'clock on YouTube Live, telling you things about making films. We are hoping to see lots of entries from youth filmmakers across southwestern Ontario. And so we want to talk, we're talking to various guests, we're talking to youth filmmakers, and we're really glad to see you here today. So in today's seminar, we're going to be taking a look at how audio can elevate your project, elevate your film, and can make the difference between you getting into festivals or not. We're going to screen both winning narrative films from last year's festival and chat with their filmmakers, their directors, and we'll be taking your questions on YouTube Live. But before we introduce today's guests, I'd like to pass this over to Laura Briscoe, the Executive Director of the Forest City Youth Film Festival, to tell us a little bit more about what's in store today. Hey, Laura.
Hi, Dorothy. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here today. And I just wanted to tell people, in case this was their first time tuning in, a little bit about the Youth Festival. This is our second year running, and we are hoping to get more submissions. We have until June 25th for students from grade 9 all the way to Victory Lappers to submit their films. Do not be intimidated if this is your first time making a film. That's okay. We understand that this is, one, a different landscape that we're working in, and two, this is the platform where you can get started. So there's people here to help. Don't be nervous about submitting a film. We want to see something from everyone. There's over $4,000 in prizes to be given away, and that's all happening across southwestern Ontario, from Windsor, Toronto, all the way up the Bruce Peninsula over to Niagara Falls. If you're in those regions, then you can be entering this festival. Before I tell you more, and Dorothy will come back to you about the festival, I want to talk about our guest speakers. We have two very fantastic award-winning student filmmakers. We're going to be seeing their films today and getting to chat with them. And leading the discussion, we have Mark Vogelsang, and he is such a skilled person for us to be able to get to speak with today. He has a Gemini Award-winning experience. He's the Director of Sound and Design at the Ontario Institute of Audio and Recording, so OIART, here in London, Ontario. I'm going to have to look at this because it's a huge list of experiences he's had. Supervising sound editor at Farmhouse Creative Labs in Toronto, an award of distinction in sound design at the Wild Rose Film Festival in the US. And basically you can find his work at almost every major big film festival globally. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Mark to share with us today about some audio techniques. Mark?
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Dorothy. Very exciting day today. I always love doing these things, especially for the youth. It's great to catch young filmmakers, especially while they're in high school. I really look at this like athletes. You know, if you want to be a great athlete and you want to start out in high school and go into post-secondary, you may as well know the rules of the sport you're in really well, so you can move on into more professional sports. And that really goes for sound as well as picture in festivals. And that's what I want to cover today, is to look at all the different objective details of maybe why your film didn't get into a film festival, I really want to focus on that because I get a lot of questions. You know, I bought the right camera, the scene was lit properly, I got good actors, but why didn't my film make it in? And a lot of the times it's to do with sound. So I really want to take you through that and then look at also the subjective side, maybe creatively, what you could do a little bit different, and go from there. And then we're going to view Ethan Hickey's film as well as Emma Tucker, which are two great examples, almost polar opposite types of films. So I'm going to go into, the first thing I want to show you is something very objective. So as a sound supervisor, I want to show you what I deal with youth films right up to Hollywood style films. So let's go over there for a second. So one thing I do want to look at is this idea of when films are submitted, what the jurors or what the behind the scenes really looks like. So for me as a sound supervisor, if I'm dealing with a youth festival film or a larger budget film, there's always some bizarre jargon that comes at me that looks like this. So I see these numbers and explanations of how this content should be delivered. And that's the objective side. Truthfully, if you want to create a product that's going to be delivered to the market, whether it's a youth festival or Hollywood, there are actual specifications that you have to meet for these films really to be played back. And that's the number one rule if you want to submit your film is, number one, is it listenable? And that just means when the film is played back in the venue for the festival, really, is it going to annoy someone? Is someone going to walk out because they just can't listen to it? It's so intense to listen to. So that's one, is I would call that the loudness factor of it, which are these specifications up here, which I will go through. I'll show you how I go through specifically the youth festival. So that's the loudness factor. Can it be played back in the venues of the festival? Because no festival, youth festival to Cannes or TIFF wants anyone walking out. And number two would be intelligibility. So when you play it back specifically with dialogue-driven films, can the audience truthfully understand what the actors are saying in the venue or in the film itself? So what we're looking at here, before I move on to actually playing something back, I do this for the youth festival as well. I don't want anybody to be deterred by this. You know, we're looking at maybe some scary things right now. This is meant to inspire you. Again, like an athlete, you may as well know the rules now so you can just be that much further ahead. And when you're that much further ahead, it's easy. And in high school and youth, when you're producing these films, the two little details that I'm going to give you today, believe it or not, will skyrocket you past most of the population in youth that are producing films. And they're really simple. So that's my goal, is to inspire you, not to scare you. So I'm going to show you what I look at. If I want to submit to Netflix, we're looking at it right now. So if I have to submit a film to Netflix, I have to meet these loudness guidelines, which we'll look at for the youth festival. The other thing that's going to happen, this is just a behind the scenes look. This is not something that would happen at a youth festival. So one, I would get specifications for how to deliver the product. Two, there's a third party that would actually be reviewing all of my work. So this is called a quality control report. So this would be for any product that is going to be bought and played back on Netflix, A&E, anywhere. For that product to be delivered, it would have to meet these specifications. And it goes through this rigorous quality control. You can see down here that they sort of rate you a minor, moderate, or severe penalties. And what they do here is they review picture and audio specifically. And that's the relationship I'm going to talk about today, is how important camera and sound are. So frame by frame by frame by frame for professional production, they go through and they basically tell you what you did well and what you didn't do so well. And the idea of a quality control is to just make sure when they go through picture and audio that the viewer's experience is going to be meticulous. And that's what we want for all of you, for the youth festival, is to look at these sort of rules and make sure that your product meets something like that. So I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to show you that objective side. So what we're looking at here is down at the bottom here is a line of dialogue. So what happens when you submit your film, your line of dialogue or your scene in general is evaluated, okay? So you submit your film, and this number over here, so where it says no anchor, actually has to meet an objective number, whether you know it or not. And again, this is not something that you have to try to do. Most of the people that submit, and 100% of the people who submitted to the Youth Festival last year, they were in the industry objective value, and they were only doing this really through their gut, only supplying sound and mixing sound and editing sound through their gut. So I'm going to play this back, and I want you to watch the window right here that says no anchor. And what I'm after, I'm trying to get that number to a value of -19. Okay, so I'm just going to play something back and just keep your eye on that for a second. Okay, so that number, let's look at the middle number there, it has a nice green check mark. That means that the loudness, so the amplitude of this, meets some sort of standard. And the standards are global. You know, the Youth Festival, the standard that I use to play back material at Wolf is -19, so it would have to have a check mark there. But I want to talk about why yours maybe wouldn't meet the objective value, because this is really, really, really important for those of you that are working with dialogue. So this is specifically narrative, and that's why we're going to watch Ethan's first, is because his is a great example of this. So let's say you have a 4K camera, you lit the set, you've got great actors, you love your narrative film, you submit it to festivals around the world, and it doesn't get accepted anywhere. One of the main reasons it doesn't get accepted is because of the way that your dialogue is recorded and played back. And it's these three things. So let's imagine that we are on set right now. So this top recording is the dialogue on set. This next audio file represents the background noise. So let's say you're filming in a kitchen, that's the refrigerator, that's just the sound of the kitchen. And third, every piece of hardware, so your camera or your audio device, wherever you are recording audio, has some sort of noise. So it produces noise itself. And the goal would be, which is what we're looking at here, is to have your dialogue amplitude, or how loud it is, much greater than the background noise and much greater than the camera noise. So that means, one, the microphone was close to the actor, and two, the gain or the amplitude of the microphone going into your camera was at a high enough gain that the dialogue sat apart from the other ones. If that doesn't happen, so I'm going to play this back now. If that happens, we should be hearing a nice, clean line of dialogue. So I'm going to play that back for you. This is the nice, clean line of dialogue.
What? What are you doing? What do you mean? Since when do you kick doors down? Since I'm 6 inches taller than.
Right, so the intelligibility is there. I can understand what they're saying. Great, so that's passable. That would be an example of a passable dialogue recording. I'm going to mimic to you a situation where it wouldn't make a festival. So why a festival might respond to you and say, sorry, you didn't make it in. And often they don't say, hint, hint, it's because your signal to noise ratio or your camera was too loud or your background was too loud compared to your dialogue. That's just not something that you hear, but it's something that behind the scenes, trust me, that happens quite often. That means it would sound or look a little bit like this, where say your microphone was too far away from your talent, or the microphone that you had on them, let's say it's a lapel mic, the gain into the camera was too low, which means your dialogue, I'm going to zoom in here, your dialogue level is very, very close to the other background noise as well as your camera noise. So if I play that back, I'm just going to reduce the amplitude, and let's go back here and watch this window, this that says no anchor. I want you to look at that value.
What? What are you doing? What do you mean? Since when do you kick doors down? Since I'm 6 inches tall.
So that says minus 41. If I took that recording, so I can somewhat understand what it is saying, if I took that recording and I'm the juror, so I'm evaluating your sound, I would have to turn up that recording significantly. So, and I'm going to play that back for you. So I would have to turn it up quite a bit to be able to meet the standard of the venue that your film is going to be played back in. But listen to the recording that would be played back in the theater. So I'll play that for you now.
What? What are you doing? What do you mean? Since when do you kick doors down?
Right? So that means the amplitude of the camera noise, the amplitude of your kitchen, and the amplitude of the dialogue were so close together that when I have to increase the volume to meet the standard of the venue it needs to be played back in, all of those come up together. And that's really one of the objective values, and I wouldn't even call it a mistake, it's an innocent mistake that happens regularly, is something as simple as that, where your background noise is much too close to the amplitude of the dialogue. So in that case, it wouldn't matter how close or how great your visual was. It wouldn't pass quality control. And I would air quote that quality control for a youth festival, just because it would be so fatiguing to the audience to listen to that it just couldn't be played back, even though your visual, your actors, and your lighting is amazing. So that's the number one rule, is that objective intelligibility and loudness playback. The other side of it, subjectively, this is where the creativity comes in. This is a little bit different. So the second evaluation that would happen to your product when you submit to a festival, youth to major festival, is, are you taking opportunities with camera and sound? Are you utilizing camera and sound to tell the best narrative? And this is really what seals the deal when you move into, I would say, a semi-professional to a professional, is the evaluation of what's happening with camera and what's happening with sound. So I'm going to set this scene up that we're looking at right now. So I'm going to go back to what Steve McLeod said in the last Youth Festival Film Series 101. If you watch that, and if you haven't, watch it. It's a great one. I'm going to talk about the 180-degree rule right now. So right now we're looking at what I would call an establishing shot. Okay, so after this establishing shot, eventually at the end of this scene, I want to arrive here. And this is the main character of the scene. So I'm setting up a principal actor as an example. And there's lots of ways. So this is where I have to end. Okay, this is the end of the scene. I have to end on the principal actor, and I start out the scene here in an establishing shot. And what's most important is, how did I get there? So how did I get from an establishing shot, which is what we're looking at right now, all the way to the main character? And there's lots of options, which I have an example here I'll show you. One option would be simply to show our establishing shot and cut directly to the character. So it's a hard edit, where originally, the first one I showed you, notice that they panned across this bus. So they're moving from an establishing shot all the way to the character with a camera pan. And there's our 180 degree. So we start out here and we're on a 180 degree line, and they chose a pan. That is a great example of using camera to tell the story a little bit differently. So rather than hard cutting, we are actually panning to get across there. Sound-wise, that's huge. So for sound, as an example, I'm going to play you back just a rough edit of this scene. If I'm trying to sound design for this scene, I'm obviously going to design what the city sounds like looking at it now. And if I go forward a little bit here, I can see up top that light, there's a helicopter in there. So I'm going to paint by number, put helicopters in, put city noises in, and what you see is what you get. Very much a paint by number. But I also need to figure out a way to get to that principal actor with sound. And if camera or picture doesn't give me opportunities, all I can do is just cut sound from one scene to the next. So I'm going to play this back for you. This is what it sounds like, just a regular edit. Right, so we've got music up at the top. Here's some really eerie music playing. That's something you can expect. Music is obviously going to be there. We've also got this really subtle, if you're in headphones right now, you'll be able to hear this, just air. We've got some background, some distant helicopters, and we also have just a pitch. So I would call that city din. Now, the one thing I can add to this, so let's say you are the director and you say, you know, this is the principal actor, this is a huge scene, we're developing this. If I didn't have a camera pan in here, there's only so much I can do. So this is a really clever way to draw attention to the audience is what I'm getting at. So the first process, I'm going to show you what I would do. The first process that I would do is I would actually take something from the scene like a helicopter, and I would match the helicopter exactly to that movement of the camera across the bus. And it makes such a huge difference when I'm given a camera movement to add sound to. So I'm going to play that back and just listen for the helicopter that floats across that bus. It's dramatic. It makes it much more dramatic and allows me to draw attention to that character. Okay, so there's the helicopter, and what I can do that's even more important, if the helicopter follows the movement of this bus, which I'll end it here with the objective, it's even much more dramatic. So I've added a singular helicopter to it, but listen and feel, watch what happens when I match the helicopter move to the camera pan. So good. It makes such a massive difference that that camera pan is in there, so I, as a sound editor, can draw attention to that. If that weren't there, and I lied, I'll end it here. All I can do is just cut from one scene to the next. I don't have the ability to draw attention. Right? I don't have an opportunity to draw attention to the character. And that's what's key. When we watch these two films, I do want you to think about that. I want you to think about the intelligibility factor. So can we understand what's going on? As well as the subjectivity of it. Are the camera and sound, are they working together and exploiting each other's opportunities? So why don't we go back to Ethan and watch Ethan's award-winning narrative film from last year's youth festival. I remember receiving this one and just thinking it was absolutely amazing. And for the reason that I'll talk about afterwards, when I introduce Ethan and talk a little bit about why it's so unique and why it won the award specifically. So let's go back to Ethan's film, Night Moves. He produced this film when he was still in high school, submitted it last year, and again, it won the major award in the festival. So let's play that back and we'll talk after.
Where is this house? I don't know, man. It's fine. I think we're close. Yeah, I think this is it right here. This one? Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'll look with you. Are you sure? Yeah. Number 9. That's it, though. What? What are you doing? What do you mean? Since when do you kick doors down? Since I'm 6 inches taller than you are. Please then be my guest. Where's your bread? Over there. Does this toaster work?
Yeah, why?
Good. Now, I put a singular piece of bread into your toaster. Set the timer to a minute. That's 60 seconds. And in that 60 seconds, if you're not able to tell us where and who you bought the guns off of, I'm gonna let my associate Smith over there handle this situation, so we call it. Now, personally, if I were you, I'd use these 60 seconds wisely. Because that man over there, that man isn't me. See me? I believe in second chances. I believe giving someone an opportunity to speak up when something went wrong. But that man over there, you know what he's gonna do? He's gonna cut off every single one of your fingers until you tell us where the guns are. Your time starts now.
What's going on?
Now who sold you the guns?
What do you mean guns? I don't have any guns.
Tick tock, tick tock. Say you got about 30 seconds, give or take.
I have absolutely zero clue what's going on right now. Zero!
Oh,
I don't know what's going on.
Valuable time, Jimmy. That bread's toasting, and it's toasting quick.
Jimmy, who's Jimmy?
Hey man, I wouldn't look at me right now.
Hey, whoa. Who's who? Don't who me? Who? I'm not. What are you, an owl? Now who sold you the AR-15s? Scott, grab me a piece of paper and a pen. Write down what you have to say now. What does it say?
Damn. Man.
What?
Come here.
Damn.
This last one. Scott, if you don't want, can't be doing this no more, man. This is it.
Good, great job, Ethan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Right off the bat, I don't see this often. You took on two major things that most people stay clear of. Comedy, it's extremely difficult to write for, and that much dialogue. So can you talk quickly, South Secondary, you did this in high school. What made you take on something so huge, and would you change anything about that now that you know what you know?
Answer the second question first. I don't think I changed anything. I was very happy with the way it all came together. I think the only thing is no one really noticed, but when we started filming the opening, so we shot in sequential order, so from start to finish. It was daytime at the start, and by the time it was finished, it was nighttime. So no one really noticed that, but that was something that I changed. I'd film later at night so that it was dark throughout. That's something I changed. But what was your first question again?
If you took on something so huge with so much dialogue and so much comedy, most people wouldn't even attack that in the professional world.
I came off doing a film called Slowly But Surely, and one of the actors in this film was also in that one, and it was a was a silent film basically with just music playing over top of it with some dialogue. But I like switching genres every film. So I did a drama that had a heavy message in it. And I just wanted to have fun with something. So I wrote something that I enjoyed, and I definitely stole from Quentin Tarantino a little bit with just the heavy, witty dialogue kind of mixed in with some action, some crime, and some comedy. So that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah, and you took some risks. That's really important for all youth filmmakers. I think maybe you agree is you don't really find out what you can do and what you can't do until you do it, and maybe not think too much about it and just go for it.
Definitely.
Let's go to some questions and give you some answers from the audience if we can.
Hey, thanks for letting me join in here. Yeah, there's a few questions, but first of all, I just want to ask one, Ethan. I wanted to ask about the sound on this. How did you record this for this shoot?
Well, there was a contest called the Road Film Contest. I forget what the actual name of it is, and I submitted one of my films, Slowly But Surely, to that. And I got 100 votes in that film, so I won a free Video Mic Pro, which is a Rode microphone that's very common. And so I got that in the mail a couple days before I filmed Night Moves, and we used that hooked up to a Zoom H1, which is a audio recorder, and then we recorded out of that with a boom pole, and we recorded scratch audio from the camera, and then we matched the two of them in post afterwards, which is something that I'm assuming Mark may talk about, which is always a great thing to do. So.
Great. Good. So you actually had two mics on this. Yeah,
it's very easy to have this. It's called scratch audio, and then you match that with the professional audio used with the boom mic.
Great. And then if you don't have, maybe Mark, you can answer this. If you don't have a professional mic or you haven't got a boom mic handy, are there any hacks? Are there any shortcuts that students can use to get decent audio on their shoot?
There's a great hack that a lot of students do more in the screenwriting is write your character so that they are holding a phone, or, some of them have rewritten the characters so they're a reporter, that they're always holding a microphone, and that microphone that's on screen is actually the microphone that's recording dialogue. So let's say if you have a cell phone, there was a student recently that wrote it in, they had a glove. That they just put the cell phone in the glove, and it looked like a fake arm, and they just always held it up there, and they were just always talking into the cell phone. That's one great hack, is if you can write the microphone or where you're recording into the scene. Okay,
but if you can't, is there another hack?
Yeah, you can use your cell phone. So Rode is a great company that everyone can check out. Prosumer to entry-level microphones. They have microphones that you can plug directly into your phone. Little lavalier microphones that you can hide on a person.
Great.
Otherwise, that's sort of the mid-level. iPhone is where you can start out, just record on anything that you have. And the prosumer would be what Ethan is talking about, where you actually have a dedicated microphone. So those are sort of the three levels. iPhone to a lavalier microphone plugged into your phone, and then a boom microphone above that.
Beautiful. Great. Well, just going online, we do have one question. You showed a list there, and Alana Abby Walker's wondering if this list can be put on the website. Can we have access to that list, or a list like that, and we can maybe put that up there for somebody?
It's a great question. It's licensed.
Okay. So we can maybe put up something similar to that.
I can definitely come up with something for sure. Yes.
All right. Okay, great. Well, now I think what we're going to do is, I'm sorry. I have a teacher's question from Miss Booth at Beale, actually. Ethan, if you were going to give students advice about writing a narrative and they didn't know where to start with their idea, because you did submit 3 narrative films. I want to point that out. Incredible output. So if they don't know where to start with their ideas, do you have any tips on how to start with narrative ideas?
I think that a lot of young filmmakers, and when they're just starting out, they think that they have to write a drama with something with a really heavy message. I see that a lot, where they want to be super serious in their films. But I think that young filmmakers should really start out with comedy. They should definitely write something, just have fun with it. Like it may not be very good to start out, like what your first film is, but just go out there and like watch some of your favorite comedies. Like, what is your favorite comedy? Like for me, I'm a big fan of Superbad. That was a film that I've always loved. So write something like Superbad that you can just have fun with, and you can get your buddies, because you're like, I had difficulty getting some of my friends at the start, and I think that telling your friends that they're going to be in a super serious film, they may not want to do it, but when you tell them that they can be themselves and they can be super funny and just have a good time, that is something that I think that people will want to do.
Very nice. So that's really good advice. Just take some inspiration from your favorite projects and do like a little bit of a copy, but it's a student film, so it's good. It'll all be good. It's a good learning experience. You know what? I think we're going to, I've got one more question before we move on to the next film, but we do have another film to watch. So I'm just going to ask this one as the last question for Ethan. How long did you take in your post-production stage for this? And I'm just going to add a tiny bit onto that. And how much attention did you give to the audio in your post-production?
Oh God, so much. Basically, so the cinematographer on this film's name's Jerry, and we've worked together on 2 films now. He was also the co-editor. The 2 of us co-edited it together. And he lives about half an hour away. I'm in Old South, and he's kind of in North London area. And so I drove to his house one day, and we had all the files, and we decided we were going to sit down and edit the film in that one day. And we were there for probably 8 hours, and we got a couple cuts done of the film. And but we realized that there were still a lot of problems with sound, and we also didn't add Foley yet. And Foley is the little things that you add in, like a knock on a door and stuff like that. And so we decided, okay, I'm going to come back tomorrow, and I'll be here like 2-3 hours at max, and we'll finish the film. But we took about 12 more hours so it took about 20 hours in a 48-hour span to edit the film, and we spent a lot of time on Foley. So we cut the film all together. We knew what sounds we needed, and then we went back with our microphone, and we held it up to items. So for example, there's a scene where one of the actors is writing on a notebook. So we went back, we grabbed a piece of paper and a pen, and we recorded that by itself, and then we added that in. And there was also some times where we had I didn't think of it, but we had the fan going in the kitchen, and that had some problems with the angle that the microphone was at. It would pick up the fan a lot, so we had to deal with that by going into Adobe Audition, which is an audio recording application. We had to kind of get rid of the noise as well as possible.
Well, good for you. You did a great job. I mean, it really is quite an undertaking to do a film like this. And now we're going to see the runner-up from last year. Emma Tucker is the director, and it's called Goodbye for Now. So we're going to watch that. And Emma is here. She co-directed it with a friend of hers. And so we'll talk about all of that when we come back. But for now, let's go right into that film.
Great job, Emma.
Thank you.
Those are two completely different styles of films. It's so great to have them back to back. One that's huge dialogue, and yours, which is entirely music, which is great to talk about with sound, with our sound theme today. So congratulations, and we should give a shout out to Alyssa O'Brien as well.
Yes.
Co-director.
Yes, we directed it together.
Yeah, that's great. So same as Ethan, you could have told this story. It's a pretty deep story, right? You chose to showcase something quite heavy emotionally. What made you choose music only? Because dialogue is a really easy way to tell the story that you were trying to tell. In fact, music is a more difficult way to tell that. So what made you choose that? And again, like Ethan, is there anything you would have changed knowing what you know now?
So we chose to do music, I think, because we wanted to express like the emotion of the film without using any dialogue, because that is a very difficult thing, as you said, because you really have to represent that in every sort of take. And so I think adding dialogue, we could have done it, we thought about it, but we actually filmed this film in a very short period of time. So we were like, well, we could do dialogue, but we were like, it's actually turning out a lot better than we thought it would without it. So we figured we'd go that route. And I guess looking back on it now, I don't know if I'd necessarily change anything concerning like that aspect of the film. There was definitely a couple scenes where I was like, oh, cringe, but it was very fun to make. And I don't think if Alyssa and I could change anything, I really don't. I don't think we would at this point, so.
That's great. And I do want to, Emma and I were discussing before we started the cringe factor when you look back on your work as a young filmmaker. That's really important, because that means you're maturing. You know, all of us professionals look back on material and we're embarrassed what we did years ago. And that's great. That's a natural thing that young filmmakers should know, is that when you look back on your material, sometimes you're, why did I do that? But that's a sign of progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's great. So congratulations. So why don't we take some more questions? Questions are great from audience members. It's always interesting to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so thank you, Emma. It's just lovely to see that film that you and Alyssa did. And like Mark said, I loved that that it was an example of not having to problem solve dialogue and how you record things on set. We have a question from Hernan. He asks, did you compose this song for this particular film? Where did the music come from? And so tell us, where did the music come from?
So I wish I did. I am sadly not that musically talented, but we found, our teacher gave us like a resource of just royalty-free music. He was just like, make sure you're not obviously using anything you'd have to pay for, because that can create rights issues. So you can literally just look up on YouTube like royalty free and like the tone or genre that you want, and you can get a lot out of that. Obviously, it can be a little limited, because a lot of people obviously want their work paid for. But if it is royalty free, then you can use it. So that's a resource I recommend for students in high school who can't like afford to pay for the rights for music. You just look on YouTube.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, royalty-free music. And so did you put that music in after you'd edited, or did you choose the music and then edit it to the music?
I actually put it in afterwards, but I knew the kind of tone that we were looking for. But Alyssa and I went through a bunch on YouTube. We found the same genre and just kind of like looked through like, okay, what kind of suits to each scene well, and we found that this one was probably the best. But yeah, so. Cool.
We have a question from Ava from online. She asks, what did you shoot the film on? She loved it.
Yeah, so I actually shot it on my iPhone, because we, again, did this in a very short amount of time. And did not really have the resources. Some of it was actually shot on a camera that we used from Comtech, but most of it was on our iPhones. But I did see another question here too. I think we might have missed it from Nandita.
Yes, Nandita asked, where did you get the inspiration for the story?
So that, I don't really know actually. I can't really remember how we got the inspiration. and maybe we got it from the fact Woodstock has had a really rough couple of years. There's been a lot of suicides in Woodstock, especially among the high school population. So I kind of just, I don't know, I think partly might have come from there, just thinking of like what it'd be like to lose a friend. And originally we were going to do a couple, and we were going to use our friends Maddie and Jacob, who actually did enter the festival. And we were going to use them, but they can help us for time and scheduling reasons. So we were like, okay, we'll do a best friend and the losing her best friend. So we couldn't really find anyone last minute to act in it. So I was just like, whatever, like I'll do it. And so we did that. But yeah.
So this has been great because it's been wonderful to see your film, because that shows it's a great example of what you can do without a massive amount of equipment, without, taking a ton of time to write dialogue, and you still had a lovely, lovely piece that really evoked emotion. And Ethan's, in the same way, showed how when you just, adding the dialogue in, and a great example of just taking it all the way and getting a scenario, and, really there's so much range and opportunity to do this. And even in the world of social distancing, physical distancing that we live in now, I think that there's still lots of options to do this kind of work. So thank you very much to you, Emma, for coming and speaking, and to Ethan, even though he's not on screen now. Really appreciate these films. The films, all of the narratives will be up on the website now after this evening. So now, and Mark, thank you very much for being here and lending us your expertise. There's so much more to learn about audio, but thank you for giving us a little taste of what it's like at that higher level, and the range of how far you can go from the very basic all the way up to doing something quite elaborate. So we have to wrap it up for today. This has been really wonderful, though. And I want everybody out there to know that we are going to be posting this on Instagram, and tonight at 8:00 we'll be doing a watch party. Ethan and Emma and Mark will still be here. So if you have questions that you want to drill down and you want to get a bit more information, please come and ask those questions. If we missed some of the questions that you asked today, because I do see there's a couple, I'm sorry, Aaron Stevens just asked a question that we can't answer right now, but we'll start off as we start talking. We'll start typing that answer tonight on Facebook Live. So come back at 8 p.m. on our Facebook account with your questions. Please invite your friends to come and check this out, and ask Ethan and Emma and Mark some questions there. So remember that we also have plenty of other resources available for you to help you make your films on our YouTube channel, and on the Forest City Film Festival .ca or forestcityfilmfest.ca/Youth Film Fest. So we really want to help you guys, support you guys as much as we can in making your films. Last year, we were so impressed with the talent, and already this year we've received some wonderful films. So we really encourage you to make your films over the next couple of months and get them in. So over the next 3 weeks, we are still going to be here. Come back, ask any questions anytime along that way. Next Wednesday, at 3:00, same time, we're going to be talking about documentaries, all about documentaries, with the top 2 documentary filmmakers from last year, the youth filmmakers, along with the documentary judge, Constanza Boracua. On May 20th, we're doing a really special one for people who have film ideas that are a little bit bigger than a 5-minute film, and they want to make a pitch. And so that's our pitch seminar. We're going to be here with one of our top youth pitch participants, and along with screenwriter Jordan Morris, who will talk us through how you make a great pitch. And our final seminar on March 27th is all about lighting with Romy Golem, coordinator for advanced filmmaking at Fanshawe College. So we really want to thank the Ontario Trillium Fund for supporting the Forest City Youth Film Festival, along with the St. Thomas Community Foundation, Fanshawe College, Western Faculty of Information and Media Studies, and Western Arts and Humanities. Help us spread the word about this, about what we're doing over the next few weeks, and let your friends and acquaintances know. And we'll look forward to seeing you tonight at 8:00, hopefully.
you.